Roughly a decade ago, Kia attempted to enter the medium to large SUV market with the Borrego, only to unceremoniously leave the US market after less than 2 years. What lesson did you learn from that experience, and why do you think the Telluride will avoid that fate?
The Borrego was a victim of horrible timing. If you think back to 10 years ago when it first came out, it was a vehicle that was a late entry into the big full-size body-on-frame SUV space. Kia didn't really have a brand name to go up against Chevrolet, Ford, Dodge, other people that were making big body-on-frames like that. Toyota with Sequoia. So number one, we had a brand that couldn't carry it yet, but more importantly, that was exactly when fuel prices started to rise, and all of a sudden Chevrolet and Ford and Dodge and Toyota couldn't sell those vehicles either. So it was just really, really horrible timing for that particular vehicle. What we're excited about with the Telluride, though, is all those bad conditions have now flipped. And now that is the segment that the Telluride sits in, is in the hottest part of the market. There's just going to be a natural interest level in a vehicle of this size. To my mind, though, 10 years ago, the Kia brand couldn't carry a vehicle of this nature. Today, it can very easily. So I think the Telluride has much better chances than the Borrego.
Much has been made of the American nature of the Telluride, but you still have the Borrego under the Mojave name still selling in a good number. The broader Kia portfolio internationally, will Telluride eventually replace Borrego in those markets, or do they both coexist and fill different needs in different markets?
It's my feeling, and they don't tell me all the good stuff, but it's my feeling that the two vehicles will potentially ride side by side, because the Borrego is a body-on-frame vehicle. It's made more in the classic, how American car companies would take truck frames and build an SUV on top of that. So the Borrego is much tougher. It's made for much more extreme environments, like in the Middle East or Southeast Asia, different areas. Not to say the Telluride's not tough, but as a unibody, it just doesn't have the same towing and structural integrity that you get from a body on frame. So I think that there could be a chance for those two to live side by side, because they would appeal to very, very different customers.
Do you see a segment of the American public clamoring for some sort of return for a next generation Borrego now that you say that?
We don't. The idea of the body on frame design like that inevitably leads to a very non-car-like drive, and it's been well proven by companies much bigger than Kia who would love to sell more body and frame SUVs, Ford, General Motors, Toyota, etc., that American consumers really like that car-like ride, that solidity and quietness, but have it look like it could be tough enough. And, that's why the unibody is by far the dominant.
Okay. Telluride is being built next to Sorrento in the same West Point, Georgia plant. How much commonality under the skin is there between the two?
I don't know the hard percentages on that, but I would imagine things like steering racks, switch gear, some of the under the skin componentry is probably shared. But it rides on an extended and expanded platform of the Sorrento, so it's much different in that respect. Obviously a much bigger vehicle. But yeah, I don't know the hard numbers on it, but obviously to keep that fantastic MSRP at starting price at under almost $40,000, there will be some commonality.
Okay. One of the interesting things I noticed is that it carries the latest iteration, if you will, of the Lambda 3.8 V6, and now it has Atkinson cycle functionality, which is something you normally associate with hybrids. But it's not a hybrid per se. Is it a stretch to say that you're getting some of the fuel economy advantages and functionality of a mild hybrid without the extra weight of the batteries?
No, I don't think, electrification is what really can save fuel efficiency, because then you can provide propulsion or power within the vehicle with no gasoline being used whatsoever. That's obviously the most efficient. So the Atkinson cycle is really all about the combustion process, as I'm sure you know, and how the intake valve staying open longer, I believe, than in typical combustion cycle. So there are benefits in the burn and the lean, the less amount of fuel to get the same bang, if you will, within the piston. So yeah, I wouldn't say as far as it being, hybrid-like. But yes, that is technology that until today was traditionally used for hybrids.
Now I have a question about your frenemy, if you will, Hyundai. You look at the specs for the upcoming Palisade, you're looking at the same wheelbase, you're talking about the same Lambda Atkinson cycle 3.8 V6, so obviously there's a lot of commonality under the skin between the two.
Absolutely.
Nevertheless, you're to be commended because they both look totally different where it counts. Are there any particular aspects where you think Kia got it right more than Hyundai?
Well, I think there's room in the market for both, and I, as you said, frenemy. So I'll be nice to my big brother here, but I truly do, because the Palisade is really being set up as more of a family machine, Costco runner, soccer mom, if you will. And it's really kind of pushed the design and technology fronts more than the Kia Telluride. The Telluride is more of a classic, what a Chevrolet Tahoe once was. What made SUVs popular in the first place, which was that big, bold, and boxy. Big box with a lot of room inside to carry on whatever you need. So I think they really have a different space. Some people will look at the Telluride and say, looks like an old car. And other people will look at the Palisade and say, that's too modern. I want something classic. So I think there's room for both.
Okay. One of the things that impressed me about the interior, especially the mention that the wood and especially the metal work is actually imitation. And again, I commend the Kia designers for doing such reasonable facsimiles, especially the metal.
Yeah. No, I know it surprised a lot of people, and that's why I said this morning, yes, we're saying it's imitation, but you've probably been fooled by lots of other vehicles along the way.
Especially the metal.
Yes, yeah, it's pretty easy to fool.
Yeah. Obviously, you have 7 versus 8 passenger versions. How is the breakdown by trim level as far as which ones are 8-seaters, which ones are 7-seaters?
That's a flexible thing we can do in production planning. I think the thought initially that would be more 7-passenger for people who are coming in maybe buying a higher trim level. And then I think we'll see it to kind of balance out. But I think I've seen one of the product planners say something in probably the 40% 7 and 60% 8.
Which of the trim, do all the trim levels have 7 or 8-seater options, or do different trim levels have different?
I'm not dead sure, but I believe the lowest trim model may be only bench seat. Then the captain chair becomes more of a step up.
Okay. It's interesting because of course, the world has gone crossover crazy, and moms would not be caught dead in a minivan.
Right.
Whereas I'm the contrarian that thinks minivans make more sense. You got a lower center of gravity. You got the sliding doors where the kids don't, bang into the door of the car next to them. You've got more interior room within the same footprint. And interestingly enough, Kia, with the Sedona, is one of the last believers in the minivan. But do you think the Telluride will do a number on it and really decrease sales?
The market has spoken in regards to minivans. I mean, even if you look at the market leaders, Honda and Toyota, Toyota hasn't done any updates to their Sienna for almost 10 years.
Right.
So yeah, the minivan market is just too heavily stigmatized. Unfairly, I agree with your analysis that it's a better box for many, many families. But yes, I think we expect that while the Sedona is still available, we think that this kind of vehicle like a Telluride provides 90% of the minivan, but does it in a way that's much more socially acceptable.
So you think that we may well be seeing the last Sedona generation in the North American market?
No. There's plans for next generations and so forth. Yeah, we don't. Kia is a brand that likes to really keep itself diversified, have something for everybody. So yeah,
that's great. Telluride has been billed as the most all-American Kia ever, designed by the California studio, built in West Point, Georgia. But are there any export plans for it?
Great question. Yes, we knew initially that there would be export to the Middle East, because that market really enjoys that kind of large SUV, especially luxury type feature SUV like this. So we, in fact, we just sent our first shipment to the Middle East, I think about 10 days ago. So they're on their way. What's interesting is that reaction to the Telluride in Asia, in Korea especially, has been so extreme that they're now insisting on getting it in the US market. So we're now looking to probably be importing some to Korea, which was not part of the original plan, and other parts of Southeast Asia.
Has there been some clamor to eventually build it in Korea, or will it still remain a solely American sourced product?
I think it'll just be American sourced. I mean, they already build plenty of other products. It's better for us to have that little better balance there.
And come to think of it, there is, I think, some sort of free trade agreement still between South Korea and the United States.
It's called, yeah, the Chorus Agreement. Yeah.
Right. So I guess that would help in that regard.
That's right. Yeah, well, and they won't be taking that many. I mean, the South Korean market is very small, so it wouldn't make sense to build them. We can send them 20 at a time.
Right. Okay. I thank you very much for your time. Really
my
appreciate
pleasure.
it.
Great questions, by the way. I enjoyed
Thank you. Thank you.
That was fun.